How many times have you let a single sentence ruin your entire day? A sidelong glance, a venomous comment, a poorly disguised criticism. It's amazing how a single gesture can ignite an almost uncontrollable rage within us. A rage that isn't just directed at the other person. It seems small on the outside, but inside it's like a bonfire that consumes you completely. And you ask yourself, why does this affect me so much? Why do they have so much power over me? Maybe it's time to face the most painful truth. The truth no one wants to hear. What hurts you doesn't just come from outside, it comes from within. Take a deep breath with me now, because what I'm about to tell you might just move you. That anger you feel when someone belittles you, that feeling of being crushed inside by an offense, doesn't originate in the other person's mouth or gesture. It comes from a much more intimate place. Your own shadow. Carl Jung taught us that anger is the voice of everything you've hidden from yourself. Memories that hurt too much to face, fears you swore to forget, truths about yourself that you've rejected. And while you don't look at it, anyone can touch your wound without even realizing it and completely destabilize you. Let me tell you a story. Sarah was a marketing manager, dedicated, creative, and passionate about what she did. One day, in the middle of a meeting, a colleague interrupted her presentation with a curt tone. That idea has already been done. Let's move on to the next one. Silence filled the room, and Sarah felt her face heat up. Her heart raced. She wanted to retaliate, to prove him wrong. But for a moment, she stopped. She asked herself, why does this hurt me so much? And that's when she realized it wasn't just about him. It was about the girl whose parents ignored her when she showed them a drawing. It was about the teenager who never felt good enough. It was about an old pain hidden deep inside, begging to be seen. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it destiny. Sarah understood that the pain wasn't the other person's fault. It was hers, and that only she could heal it. What does this mean for you? That every time someone makes you lose your temper, it's not just about them, it's about you. Because anger is just the tip of the iceberg. The rest is submerged in the unconscious. And when you decide to stop, breathe, and ask, what does this really want to show me? You begin to take back a power that no one else can take from you. It's not about swallowing hard. It's not about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about looking inside before exploding outward. Jung also said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. You can choose to continue reacting, or you can transform that wound into awareness. And when you choose awareness, no one can take away your peace. So the next time someone lights that flame inside you, don't fight it. Don't let it burn you down. Stop, breathe, look at the shadow, and ask, what do you want to teach me? That's where you'll discover the secret to never losing your temper with anyone again, realizing that the real battle was never with them, it was always with yourself. And what about when the anger is already there, throbbing, ready to escape, when you feel your blood boiling, your breath heavy, and every muscle in your body begging for a reaction? It's in that exact moment that a choice resides, a choice so small that almost no one notices it, but so powerful that it can change your entire life. Most of us live on autopilot, believing there's no space between what someone else does and what we feel. But Carl Jung taught us that there is indeed a space, and it's there that your freedom resides. Have you ever stopped to notice how we act like puppets of our emotions? Someone says something cruel, and the response comes out unfiltered. Someone provokes us, and we react without thinking. It seems inevitable, but it's not. Jung said we are slaves to everything we don't understand within ourselves. And when you learn to look at this space between stimulus and response, you begin to understand. You stop being pushed around from within and begin for the first time to choose. Let me tell you about John. He was 28 years old, a graphic designer, and had a childhood friend named Mike. One night over a beer, Mike blurted out, still in that artistic phase, "When are you going to get a real job?" John felt his heart race, a hot wave of anger rising in his chest. He almost retaliated with harsh words, but he breathed. 3 seconds, And in that time, he realized something, that taunt wasn't just about Mike. It was about the old wound of not feeling taken seriously. He chose not to give power to that pain. He looked at Mike and smiled. "I'm exactly where I want to be." And in that moment, John discovered something no one had ever told him. You don't have to react. You can just be. That's the beauty of this space. It's a portal for you to reconnect with yourself. Even in the most chaotic moments, Jung was inspired by another thinker, Viktor Frankl, who said, "Between stimulus and response lies a space. In this space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." And isn't that exactly what we want? To grow, to be free, to not be held hostage by anyone's rudeness, criticism, or contempt. This space is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more it expands. And you begin to realize every time someone tries to push you out of yourself, you can stay there, firm, centered, without giving in to the urge to hurt back, without letting their words write the script of your life. And I know this isn't easy, because it hurts, because anger is quick, because your ego screams, "I won't let it go." But if you stop and listen to the shadow for a moment, you'll notice there's nothing cheap about losing your peace. The price is always yours to pay, so choose differently. Choose conscious silence over unconscious screaming. Choose breathing over reacting. You can practice this right now. The next time someone makes a hurtful comment, pause 3 seconds, inhale slowly, look within, and ask, "What do I want to write here? Their story or mine?" Because yes, anger is their script, but calm is their signature. And if this message resonates with you, if this desire to master your own narrative has already begun to blossom within you, then stay with me on this journey, because everything we're discussing here is just the beginning. I want to show you even more about how to access this space, nurture it, and transform it into your inner strength. To not miss a single step of this discovery, subscribe to the channel here. That way you won't lose sight of yourself, or of us. As Jung said, freedom is nothing more than the chance to be better. You already have this chance in your hands. Don't let the next provocation steal it from you. Hold on tight, choose differently. And when you need company to remember who you are, I'll be here. And when you finally begin to see that you can choose how to respond, another inescapable truth emerges. Some people aren't just testing your patience, they're invading your boundaries. Some take advantage of your silence. Some mistake your calm for submission. That's why, in addition to looking within and breathing in the space between stimulus and response, you need to learn to draw an invisible fence around yourself. A fence that doesn't keep out love, but that prevents the negativity of others from poisoning your peace. Have you ever felt drained by always saying yes when you meant no? Have you ever found yourself shouldering other people's problems as if they were your own, even though you knew you couldn't handle your own anymore? That's how it starts. A small favor here, a late-night phone call there, a colleague pouring out their frustrations to you as if it were your duty to listen. Little by little, your energy fades, your patience wears thin, and your shadow grows full of unspoken resentment, full of unnamed wariness. Carl Jung reminded us that to become whole, we need to differentiate ourselves from others, to make clear where we end and the other begins. And this differentiation isn't selfish. It's necessary so you can truly be yourself, rather than just a reflection of others' expectations. Just look at Mia's story. Single mother, entrepreneur, friend at all hours. She was always there for everyone. When a friend called late at night crying, Mia answered. When a client made unreasonable demands, Mia caved. When someone needed a favor, Mia dropped whatever she was doing to help. At first, this seemed noble, but over time she realized she was exhausted, angry with everyone, even those who weren't to blame. One night when her friend called crying at 10 o'clock, Mia looked at her phone, took a deep breath, and finally did something different. She texted back, "I care about you, but right now I need to rest. Can we talk tomorrow?" On the other side, silence. On this side, relief. Mia realized that setting boundaries didn't make her less loving. It made her love healthier. Your invisible fence isn't a cold wall. It's a garden with a gate. You decide who enters, how long they stay, and what they can or can't take with them. Because when you let everyone in without asking permission, the first one to get lost in the chaos is yourself. Without boundaries, you don't own yourself. You're just a piece of other people's lives. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. And how can someone be who they truly are if they never give themselves the right to say no? If they live to please, to avoid disappointing, to avoid being seen as selfish? There's nothing sadder than a life where all the doors are open to others, but none are closed to you, allowing you to rest in peace. And you might be thinking, but how do you draw this invisible fence without hurting anyone? The truth is, you'll bruise fragile egos along the way. You'll disappoint people accustomed to relying on your limitless patience. But this initial pain doesn't compare to the weight of living entirely for others while feeling empty inside. Better a momentary discomfort than eternal exhaustion. Boundaries are actually a declaration of self-love. It's you telling the world, I am important. I also deserve care. I also matter to myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because you can't give someone what you don't have. A tired heart only offers crumbs of presence. A whole heart can finally love without losing itself. When you start setting boundaries, something curious happens. You also begin to see people more clearly. You see who stays by your side because they genuinely like you, and who just liked what you did for them. You see who respects your peace, and who only knows how to invade it. And little by little, the circle thins, but strengthens. Because the people who stay after you learn to respect yourself are those who also know how to love without exploiting. So breathe, look within. Ask yourself, where have I allowed myself to be invaded? What drains me? What leaves me alone? And with each honest answer that emerges, build your invisible fence gently but firmly. This fence doesn't keep true love out. It protects you from shadows that aren't yours. Jung reminds us that we can only be true when we dare to be whole, and we are not whole when we live to be everyone else's emotional crutch, while ignoring our own legs. Little by little, you'll realize, the stronger your fence, the lighter your soul will be. Because peace doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from not betraying yourself to please anyone. But even when you've learned to breathe before reacting, even when you've built your invisible fence, there's something that can still pierce your peace, like a sharp blade. Criticism, no matter where it comes from. A stranger, a friend, a family member. When someone questions who you are, it's as if that old pain bleeds again. A single word can echo in your mind for days. A single sentence can make you doubt yourself. And that's why we need to talk about the mirror that criticism offers us. Carl Jung reminded us that what most irritates or hurts us in others says more about us than about them. And this also applies to the pain we feel when faced with a critical comment. Because criticism, fair or unfair, forces us to look at parts of ourselves that we haven't yet fully integrated. When someone points something out in us, whether with the intention to hurt or not, it only hurts so much because it touches a wound that already existed, an insecurity, a fear, a piece of the shadow. Alex, for example, was a software developer and took pride in what he did, until the day his boss looked at him and said, "This code is a mess. I expected more from you." Alex felt his face heat up with shame and anger at the same time. He considered defending himself, counterattacking. But when he stopped to reflect later, he realized something surprising. The comment resonated with him, not because the code was actually bad, but because he'd always carried hidden deep down a fear of not being good enough. It was his shadow speaking. And maybe it's the same for you. Maybe your family's criticism of your choices still hurts because you're not yet completely sure of them. Maybe that harsh remark from your boss affects you because you still don't fully believe in your own worth. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The other person just holds the mirror. You're the one who sees your own face reflected there. And make no mistake, Not all criticism deserves to be accepted as truth. Some criticize out of spite, envy, or because they don't know how to deal with their own shadows. The secret lies in learning to separate what is a projection of others from what is actually a sign that there is something within you that needs to be worked on. To this end, Jung suggested the exercise of becoming conscious of what normally remains hidden. Ask yourself, why does this hurt so much? What exactly is hurting me? And be honest in your answer. Also remember that no one is perfect. You will make mistakes. You will fail. You will hear hard truths from time to time. And that doesn't mean you're worthless. It just means you're still in the process of becoming who you are. We all are. Criticism, when used well, is like a chisel that carves rough stone. It doesn't destroy. It reveals the form that was already there. And you'll notice something curious when you start to see criticism this way. It loses much of its venom, because it's no longer an accusation, but an invitation. It's no longer an attack, but a signal. A reminder that true strength lies not in having nothing to correct, but in having the courage to look within, without fear of what you'll find. So breathe. The next time someone says something hurtful, don't retaliate immediately. Don't let the hurt speak for you. Ask, is it true? What does this teach me about myself? If it's just someone else's shadow, respond with silence. If it's your own shadow, asking to be heard, embrace it. That's how you grow. That's how no one can tear you down with words anymore. And if all this resonates with you, if you've also felt this pain, and are beginning to understand that it's actually an invitation to be more whole, then I ask just one thing of you, like this video, so that it continues to resonate. So that this message reaches other wounded hearts who still don't know how to handle the mirror of criticism. Because everyone deserves to discover that even the most acute pain can be transformed into light. Jung said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Choose then to become someone who doesn't shy away from the mirror. Because instead of fearing it, you can use it to see yourself more clearly than ever before. And after learning to breathe, to choose, to build your fences, and to look in the mirror without fear, another inevitable question arises. How long will you keep carrying all this? How long will you hold on tight to these hurts, these grudges, these stories that should have been left behind? Maybe you've never stopped to realize it, but every wound you don't let go of becomes an invisible, heavy burden, bending your soul and stealing its lightness. And as contradictory as it may seem, often the pain has become so familiar that you feel you can't let it go, as if it were part of who you are. How many times have you found yourself repeating the same story, that unfair episode, that betrayal, that abandonment? You replay the details in your mind like someone picking at a wound just to feel the pain again. Because this pain, as painful as it may be, also gives you an identity. I am the person who was hurt. I am the person who was betrayed. I am the person who was never valued. And so you define yourself by the shadow without realizing you're chained to the past. Carl Jung told us that holding on to resentment and anger is a way of identifying with the shadow. It's an unconscious way of remaining attached to the other, to what they did, to what you think you lost. And meanwhile, your peace withers. Because resentment doesn't punish the one who hurt you, it punishes you. You sit there brooding, while the other person may no longer remember what they did. Jung also reminded us that we are responsible for what we choose to keep inside. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Emma was a talented artist who carried a corrosive grudge against her best friend, who had betrayed her years ago, spreading rumors that cost her job opportunities. Emma told herself she would never forgive, that she would never forget. And for a long time she believed that holding on to that anger was a way to maintain her dignity, until one day she realized who she was in that moment had nothing to do with the betrayed girl from her past, but still, she was living as if that story defined her. So Emma decided to let go. She closed her eyes and imagined that anger as a hot stone she carried in her hands. She felt the heat burning her skin, but she didn't let go right away. She stood there for a moment, feeling all the weight, all the pain, and when she finally opened her hands and let the stone fall, she felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. Letting go doesn't mean what they did was right. It doesn't mean you accept injustice or erase the memory. Letting go is simply choosing not to be a prisoner of something that's already happened. It's saying, I'm no longer that wound. I'm no longer that version of myself that needed to prove something. And you can start now. Take a deep breath and look at this pain you've been carrying for so long. Name it. Feel its weight. Allow yourself for a moment to hold it with awareness, and then ask, why am I still holding this in? What do I gain by keeping this wound open? Maybe you realize there's no gain, just an old tiredness that no longer makes sense to carry on. Because while you hold this hot stone, your hands can't open to anything new. And the truth is, no one can free you from this pain but yourself. Jung talked about this a lot. He said that individuation, becoming who you are, is not just about integrating the shadow, but also about letting go of everything that no longer serves you. All the invisible chains that prevent you from walking lightly. And when you finally let go, something magical happens. You don't feel smaller. You don't feel weak. On the contrary, you feel whole. Because you realize that this lightness isn't weakness, it's freedom. There are things only you can let go of. No one will come and snatch the pain from your hands. It's you who must choose, you who must let go. And only when you let go can you truly feel how much lighter it is to walk without carrying what no longer belongs to you. And when you finally let go of what's no longer yours, something unexpected begins to happen within you. A space opens up, a clearing in the darkness that for years you believed was all there was. This empty space, which may even be frightening at first, is the most precious opportunity you'll ever have in life, choosing what to plant in place of the pain. Because letting go of anger, criticism, and blame is only half the battle. The other half is remembering that there are good things you already carry, but have forgotten to see. Carl Jung said that we become enlightened, not by imagining figures of light, but by becoming aware of our own darkness. But he also knew that after recognizing ourselves in the shadows, the next task is to learn to value the light. And the light, however subtle, is already there. You just have to turn to see it. David, for example, was never an optimistic man. A delivery driver, he spent his days facing heavy traffic, impatient customers, and bills that never closed. Always grumpy, always complaining, always feeling like the whole world was conspiring against him. One day, stuck in a hellish traffic jam, David looked up at the sky and for the first time in years, noticed how the clouds had a golden hue in the late afternoon. He smiled to himself, unable to explain why. When he finally arrived home, he felt lighter, as if something inside him had changed. And indeed it had. David realized that even when everything seemed to go wrong, there was always something to be grateful for. This is the power of gratitude. And no, it's not about fooling yourself, pretending everything is fine when it isn't, or trying to hide the truth. Gratitude doesn't deny the shadows. It simply reminds you that even in the darkest night, there's always a spark burning somewhere. And that spark can be small, a kind word, a hot cup of coffee, an unexpected gesture. But it's enough to illuminate everything around you when you choose to see it. The truth is, you already possess more blessings than you can count. You're just so used to looking at the wounds, the voids, the missing pieces, that you've forgotten to look at what you already have. The heart that beats in your chest, the legs that still support you, the people who stood by you even when you felt unworthy, the sun that rises without asking for anything in return, the breath that comes and goes every day without you having to think. Gratitude is an exercise, and it might seem forced at first. After all, your mind has been trained to look for dangers, threats, and flaws. But little by little, when you resolve to see one good thing in each day, something within you changes. You begin to realize that the peace you always sought outside was right here within. That life isn't limited to the times someone hurt or belittled you. That for every pain, there was also care. For every criticism, there was also a hug. For every loss, there was also a new beginning. Jung reminded us that we are made of light and shadow, and that individuation happens when we accept both as parts of who we are. And that's what gratitude is, a conscious choice to stop feeding only the shadow And remember that light also exists. That even imperfect, your life still deserves to be celebrated. And you'll notice that the more you practice this awareness, the less vulnerable you become to others' provocations. Because when your heart is filled with gratitude, there's little room for resentment. When you learn to be grateful for who you are with all your flaws, but also with all your virtues, criticism no longer stings as much. Injustices don't weigh as heavily. Poisonous words lose their power, because you no longer depend on others to see your own worth. The light you seek isn't outside. It never was. You light it every day when you choose to look at what's most beautiful inside and outside of yourself. And every time you do, even if it's just for a moment, you become more whole, calmer, truer. And now that you're beginning to see the light, to realize that there's much more to you than just your wounds, a final, powerful question arises. Who's writing your story? Because for so long, you believed other people had that power. Every cruel comment, every dismissive gesture, every criticism you received, it was as if they were taking the pen from your hand and scrawling on the pages of your life, words you never chose, incapable, weak, unworthy. Without realizing it, you read these words silently and accepted them as truths. But Jung taught us that as long as you let the unconscious guide your life, you'll call it fate. That's why so many people believe there's nothing they can do to change their own story, as if life were something that only happens to you, and not something you also build. And maybe that's why it still hurts so much when someone hurts you, because you still believe, deep down, that they define who you are, that they have the right to write in the book of your soul. But what if they didn't? What if right now, you could choose to stand up and say, from now on, I write every line, because that choice was always yours, even if you forgot. Lisa discovered this painfully. A high school teacher, she had always been dedicated, always given her all, until the day she received an anonymous letter from a student's father, full of harsh words, accusing her of being unfair, unmotivated, and indifferent. Lisa was devastated. She cried alone at home, wondering how anyone could think that of her, after so much effort. But after weeks of carrying that paper like a verdict on her very soul, something shifted. She realized that the letter wasn't about her. It was about her father, his frustrations, his fears, not hers. That night, Lisa sat at the table, picked up a blank notebook, and wrote, for the first time, I am fair, I am dedicated, I am human, I am capable. This is my truth. And with each word, her heart felt lighter, because her story didn't need to be written by anyone else. This is the big turning point. The realization that you can choose what to keep inside, because there will always be those who try to hurt you. There will always be those who project their own shadow onto you. There will always be those who criticize, who belittle, who want to see you fall. But none of them can take away the pen that writes your story, unless you allow it. So look back at everything you've experienced so far. All the times you believed you weren't good enough. All the times you let anger or fear write entire chapters for you. And do things differently now. Ask yourself, what story do I want to tell from now on? Because you can. Because no one but you knows your scars, your battles, your silent victories so well. Jung said that individuation isn't about becoming perfect, but about becoming who you are, truly you. And only when you take ownership of your story, do you begin to feel the weight of others lift. Criticism becomes mere opinions, insults become mere echoes, and for the first time you feel like you can walk without needing to prove anything to anyone. And I want to invite you to reflect. When was the last time you felt like your story was being written by someone else? What word, what label still resonates with you, even if it's not true? Write it down here. Comment. Because when you name this pain, when you put it into words, it begins to lose its power. Sharing isn't just liberating for you. It's a reminder to all of us that we are not alone. In the end, it all comes down to this. You are not the marks others have tried to leave on you. You are the blank pages you still have to write. And each conscious choice is a new line, a new chance, a new chapter. And when you finally understand that you are the author of your story, that the words written by others no longer need to define your pages, A new sensation emerges, a stillness, an inner silence so profound it's almost eerie, as if the noise of the world can no longer penetrate you in the same way. This state isn't euphoria. It isn't triumph. It's simply peace. The peace of being who you are, nothing more, nothing less. This peace doesn't come from outside. It doesn't arrive when someone finally understands you, nor when everyone stops hurting you. It doesn't depend on the acceptance of others. It blossoms the moment you reconcile with yourself. And this is something no one ever teaches us, that the hardest and most important acceptance isn't that of others. It's your own. Throughout your life, you've learned to shape your voice to fit the tone of other people's expectations, to hold back your tears so as not to disturb them, to laugh more quietly, to speak softly, to make yourself small so as not to be criticized. Until one day, this armor becomes so heavy that you no longer know who's underneath. The shadow begins to blur with who you really are. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted. And the persona is useful because it facilitates our relationships with the world. But if you never remove it, you risk forgetting your own face. And it's only when you take off the mask that you realize you were already enough. You didn't need to bend so much. You didn't need to prove so much. You didn't need to be the perfect version that no one, deep down, expects you to be. You already were, and always have been, whole. What no one tells you is that peace isn't noisy. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or grand declarations. It arrives slowly, in the details. The moment you breathe and no longer feel the urge to explain yourself. The moment someone criticizes you and you no longer feel the need to react. The moment you look in the mirror and for the first time, smile at what you see without thinking, it's still not enough. David used to tell himself that he would only feel at peace when he finally paid off all his debts, when others recognized his worth, when they stopped talking about him behind his back. But all the wins he hoped for never came, until the day he realized that peace wasn't a destination, it was a decision. He understood that he could never control what people said, what they did, how they felt about him. But he could, yes, decide not to let it define who he was. And that day, walking alone down a quiet street, he felt that the weight he'd carried for years was simply gone. This is what Jung meant when he said that the goal is not perfection, but wholeness. Being whole doesn't mean being immune to pain, nor is it about being unshakable all the time. It's simply about being whole, accepting your lights and your shadows, accepting your victories and your failures, accepting that you are human and that that's enough. You'll realize that the more you allow yourself to be who you are, the more the world stops intimidating you. Criticism loses its power. Insults lose their venom. Simile looks no longer pierce you like they used to, because you no longer depend on them to feel whole. And it's not that the world becomes easier, it's that you become more serene to face it. It's that finally, you find a place within yourself where no one else can enter without your permission. That is the true center, the still point in the midst of chaos. Jung said that the journey of individuation is like returning home after being lost, and you're already there. You're starting to feel the ground beneath your feet again. You no longer need to run outside yourself nor hide under a mask. Peace is not the end of the road, it is the road. And step by step you are learning to walk it. When you begin to feel this silent peace within yourself, you inevitably become more aware of the noise around you. The external voices continue. The hostile gestures continue. The judgments continue. The world doesn't change just because you have. And this can be disconcerting at first, because it's natural to expect that as you find your own calm, others will finally calm down too. But it's not like that. Some will still try to provoke you. Some will still try to drag you down. And then you learn another lesson. Not everything deserves a response. Not every attack deserves a retort. Not every invitation to conflict needs to be accepted. Sometimes the greatest demonstration of strength someone can give is silence. This silence isn't cowardice. It's not indifference. It's awareness. It's maturity. It's the wisdom to realize that, often, someone else's anger has nothing to do with you. It's simply a projection of their inner chaos. Jung wrote that what bothers us about others is often the shadow they themselves don't see. And the shadow, when projected, always seeks a target. But you don't have to be that target. Sarah discovered this the hard way. After years of trying to defend herself from every comment, every criticism, every dirty look, one day she simply stopped. She was in a meeting when a colleague interrupted her with irony. "You talk a lot for someone who understands so little." Before, she would have responded in kind. She would have felt her throat tighten, her face flush, her heart race. But this time she simply looked at him, took a deep breath and remained silent. Not because she agreed, not because she was afraid, but because it wasn't worth wasting energy trying to explain to someone who didn't want to understand. She realized in that instant that nothing she said would change how the other person had already decided to feel about her. And this realization was liberating. Because the truth is this: when you respond to venom with venom, they've already won. When you play along with someone else, you're already playing by their rules. But when you refuse to play, when you simply don't resist, the attack loses its meaning. It dissolves. The other person's anger finds nothing in you to feed on, and without nourishment, it dies alone. Silence is also a form of self-respect. It's the recognition that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on petty battles, that your time is too sacred to be consumed by explanations to those who won't listen, that your peace is too precious to be surrendered to anyone who tries to throw you off balance. And you'll realize that silence isn't just a way of dealing with others. It's above all, a way of listening to yourself better. Because it's in silence that you hear the whispers of your own soul. It's in silence that you realize that not everything needs to be resolved now, that not every provocation deserves a counterattack, that not every injustice needs revenge. Sometimes the best response is none at all. Sometimes the best proof of who you've become is not letting yourself be dragged back into what you've already overcome. Jung used to say that a mature person is not one who never feels anger, but one who is no longer a slave to it. And choosing silence is this: the refusal to be a slave, the decision to be greater than the offense, to not be confused with the shadow of another. Over time, you'll notice that people begin to be surprised by your calm. They'll try to poke you, get under your skin, call you cold, arrogant, even indifferent. But you'll know it's nothing like that. You'll know that you've simply learned to protect your peace like someone protecting a garden, and that there's no greater victory than sleeping at night at peace with yourself, even if the world outside continues to be at war. This silence echoes everything you've experienced so far. It's a sign that you've finally understood that you don't need to prove anything to anyone, that you don't need to justify who you are, that you don't need to defend yourself from those who have already decided not to see, because nothing anyone says about you changes the truth of who you've become. We've reached a rare point, a moment few people have the courage to face the real possibility of becoming whole. Not an idealized version, not a perfect character, but you with all your shadows, your lights, your flaws, and your strengths. Carl Jung said that this is the greatest privilege in life, the opportunity to become who you truly are, beyond masks, beyond fears, beyond expectations. And if you're here now hearing these words, know that you're already on this path. This is no coincidence. It's a calling. It's a transformation that has already begun within you. Look back and see everything you've faced to get here. Every emotion that shook you, every shadow you faced, every conscious choice that moved you away from automaticity and closer to awareness. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. Something inside you has changed. The way you see yourself, the way you face the world, the way you choose your battles. You are stronger, calmer, more whole. But the truth is that this transformation is not an end point, but a new beginning. Because becoming whole is an ongoing process. It's a dance between light and shadow, between what's easy and what's difficult, between comfort and growth. And this path you've chosen, the path of self-knowledge, conscious choice, and inner peace, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And now, in this moment, I want to invite you to do something simple yet powerful. If this journey touched your heart, if these words ignited something within you, if you feel that this encounter could be a turning point in your life, do this. Subscribe to the channel here, because this is just the gateway to a world where you will learn to live more fully, more consciously, more at peace. Like this video so more people can find this path. So this message reaches those like you who are ready to leave the shadow behind and embrace their own light. And don't leave this transformation to yourself. Comment below about the insight that resonated most with you, what emotion you decided to look at more lovingly, and what step you're ready to take to never lose your cool with others again. Your comment could be the light someone needs to take the first step, because this journey is collective. No one becomes whole alone. We grow with each other, learn from the stories we share, and are strengthened by the courage we inspire. Always remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become from here on out. And this is the privilege of life, to choose. Choosing calm when the world tries to throw you off balance. Choosing light when shadows seem to want to dominate. Choosing peace when everything around you tries to provoke you. You're already living this choice. Now let it expand. Let this peace grow until it can no longer be shaken by anyone, because it comes from within. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having courage. Thank you for choosing to be whole. From now on, when someone tries to shake you, remember the power is in your hands. You are the guardian of your peace. This is your moment. The privilege is all yours.